And good afternoon, citizens. This is Judge Wolf,
And Severian.
and welcome to another episode of Judge Dredd in the world of 2000 AD, What's Old is New system. Today we're going to be talking about how the game plays and how roles are done in the game in order to continue to expand on the new system that we're using. So we've actually got to play once, right, Sev? How do you feel about the system and its complexity? Any thoughts on it for this first game that we played?
I'm really liking the system so far. As far as the complexity, I think it's not too complex. It's the core rules of it are really in a little over 30 pages, and a lot of those pages are just tables that are very helpful and quick reference. So it's pretty easy to understand, and I think it gives a lot of freedom to the narrative that's going on, in the way that it allows the players to pick what skills they're going to use for each role that the GM calls for, and you'll see how we get into that in a little bit. But there's also some things such as indirect skills where a skill may not wholly apply to something, but it does still give you a partial benefit. And I just think those sort of things, this whole system really supports role play very well. But at the same time, if you're one of those people that likes to min-max a little bit more, there's also a lot of opportunity for that here.
That the last thing you said, I one of the things that I really like about this system is that it's very hard to combat twink a character, right? Even if somebody wants to do nothing but combat, the system doesn't, especially with judges, doesn't really allow for that. No matter what you do, sooner or later you're going to get capped in character generation, and then you're going to have points to spend on something else. So it forces the individual people to expand out, which is great, and it kind of limits things. I like the limitations on it from a GM's point of view. So, but I definitely agree with you. I feel like it pushes the role play, but it also gives you that chunky dice feel, right? Grab a handful.
Right. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. No, I got you. I feel you. So, the basis of this system is fairly simple. You have attributes. Your attributes are, broad, and this is where one of the things that I liked, because it didn't allow for the combat twinking, right? Or even any other type of twinking, right? You can't overexpand on certain abilities, because essentially it's not your attribute skill that tells you how many dice you roll. There's that diminishing returns, right? So up on the screen right now, I have how the attributes work, right? Attribute or a skill point of 1 to 2 gives you 1 die. Attributes 3 to 5 give you 6 to 9, or give you 2d6. 6 to 9, so on and so forth. And then the GM gives you an attribute. You say what you want to do. The GM says this is the attribute, and then it's up to the player to come up with the skill that they want to associate with it. If you have any special equipment, you get to add dice from that. And it has to be the equipment that is not just regular old equipment. Essentially, where did it go? Sorry, 1 second here. Essentially, you have to have equipment in order to do certain roles. It's not like, oh, I have a lockpick, therefore I add a bunch of d6 to it. No. In fact, what you need to do is you have to have exceptional in order to add those dice to it. You can improvise things like, hey, I want to go ahead and pick up, I didn't even see that until right now. It's not so much that you have to you get bonuses for having basic equipment. It's improvising is what actually takes dice away. So when you take your attribute pool, your skill pool, and your equipment pool, this is what I call your base dice pool. One of the ways that this system keeps you from kind of twinking out on stuff is the max dice pool. So your max dice pool is governed by the number of grades that you have in careers. So your grade is what dictates the maximum number of dice. And this is another way that the system, I believe, tries to keep you from trying to min-max. So this dice pool, this base dice pool, is not including any incidental dice, any luck dice, or any positional dice. So you can have a higher dice pool than, so our beginning judges have a dice pool of 5. You can have 7, 8 dice in your dice pool, but that comes due to positional things, not your equipment and not your base dice. So attributes and skills can be mixed and matched as long as it makes sense. And Severian, I think you mentioned a few moments ago the idea of the indirect skill, right? You might not have the skill that goes directly along with something, but you might be able to relate something to it. If this happens, the GM then can say, okay, that's an indirect skill, but you're only getting 1d6 for it.
Right.
So the GM, once you have determined everything, gives a benchmark. And the benchmark has its names, but it's the difficulty score that you roll your dice, sum them up, and then try to match or defeat. So an easy roll would be making 7 or above. So with 2 dice, you should be able to do that, right? Routine starts to bump up to 10, whereas mythical, which is trying to, say, build a time machine, is what the book gives it as an example, would be a 45. So as a GM, at this point in time, you are able to do one of 2 things. You can either add or subtract dice. This is usually done whenever you have what are called complications. So the weather, something that you didn't plan for. Benchmarks can also be adjusted, but these are usually preset by either the game that you're playing. For example, if you're using one of the books published by Ian Publishing or one of the scenarios published by them, or you set it beforehand. Okay, this metal door is going to be a benchmark 15 to open. And then the players have something go on where there's blood all over the floor and they're going to slip in it. Now you can add or subtract dice from their pool. So let's give it a try, Sev. So we're going to pretend like you are out on the streets on your Lawmaster. Tell me something that you might want to try to do that's just a simple check. And we'll talk about the other types of checks that might be out there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm out on my Lawmaster. Maybe some location pops up on my computer on the Lawmaster, and I have to get there in a certain amount of time. So I want to get there as quickly as I can by finding a shortcut.
So as a GM, I would say then, all right, go ahead. You are going to make a intuition check, or let's say a logic check. We'll start with a logic check. A logic check with a benchmark of routine. You know the city fairly well, so I'm going to say that it's routine, which is a difficulty score of 10. Okay.
All right. So for that, I would take my logic, and then I would look for skills such as navigate. And in this case, Judge Null does not have navigate. So I would say maybe perception. I want to look around and see if I notice any shortcuts I can take, back alleys, that sort of thing.
So as a GM, I would say perception is pretty good. Let's go ahead. We'll say that matches with it. We're not going to say it's an indirect skill. So go ahead and do your roll.
All right. So for logic, I get 2d6, and my perception is 1d6.
So either way, it would have been a 1d6.
Yeah.
So you rolled a 12. The benchmark I set was a 10. So you defeated that. So that means that Judge Null has seen a Skedway that's a little bit more or less occupied than normal, makes that right-hand turn, guns the Lawmaster, and takes up onto it. So this is a simple roll. There is multiple types of rolls in this game, just like with most RPGs. The simple roll is just a static benchmark, right? You have 10. Roll once, beat it, or lose, right? And then depending on what happens in that type of a situation will dictate how the game goes. Opposed is whenever 2 different people are going to roll against each other. So you each set a benchmark, and you both roll. If one person wins and the other person doesn't, then they've lost that roll. There are simple extended checks. So for example, let's say you are fabricating something, you're building something, and it's going to take a while. You can do these extended checks. Usually the way that this system works is that it's impossible for me to reach through the computer and pet Doug, unfortunately. But we can do an extended check in this manner by saying, if I roll 3 successes, then the Doug is petted. Opposed extended would be 2 different people doing checks against each other, and for example, chases. Chases are the most common type of thing that would have something like that happen. So I'm petting. I don't have a Doug with me. I'm gonna pet the Sabrina. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we don't have a Doug here, but I will pet the Sabrina. Okay. Get out of here, little baby. Get out of here. Go on. So, it's very sheep-like, so it was much easier to pet. Extended post, excuse me, sorry, I got kind of stuck there. The opposed extended checks would be something like chases, where one person is running and then you're chasing after him. Are you back in here? Okay, you're going to sit up here with me then. You're going to be on TV. Congratulations. Or YouTube and Twitch right now. There's also group checks. Group checks are something I actually like in this game quite a bit. There's 2 different types of group checks. You can do checks together, where essentially you take the skills or not the skills, but the attributes of the individuals and you add them up. So for example, if Sabrina here has a strength of 2, she gets 1 die, and Severian has a strength of, go ahead, you got it, has a strength of 6. We can add those 2 strengths up together to have a strength of 8, and then from the dice pool system, we would see that you would roll 3d6. So that's one type. The next one is my favorite part about this game, because how many times have we played an RPG? How many times have we played an RPG where you are doing well on your rolls, Steel is doing well on his rolls, and then Hades comes in and just rolls like butt. And it just throws everything out the window. Right? Yep. It happens. Well, what's nice about this is that there is a group check where essentially instead of you each rolling, everybody still rolls, but if at least half of the group succeeds, it's considered for everybody to succeed. So that's called a group roll, and then there's the assisting, which I just mentioned, where you and my fuzzy head daughter try to open up a door using strength checks. At this point, too, it should be noted that there are critical successes, but there's no critical failures in this game. But we've talked about that sometimes we're going to add that into there. For example, you have the modified Lawmaster Mark 1, right?
Yeah.
So what happens if you roll? What did we decide for that roll?
666 on that, or and 111.
Right.
Sorry, on that ends up electrocuting us.
Yes.
Essentially.
So there's no critical failures in this game, but with any game, GMs should always, at least in my opinion, feel like they should adapt to any game that they come across. But if you roll 666, in this game, you have a critical success. So in terms of the game, a critical success can do a couple of different things. The GM can determine that whatever happens, an extraordinary setup happens. If there's nothing obvious, then you can refill a luck pool, which we'll talk about here in a minute. If it's a combat roll, though, it actually inflicts a condition, which we'll talk about in another video. So there are tons of different tasks that come up in this game. There's chases, engineering, hacking, interrogating, tracking. So I want to kind of give this a go with Judge Null. So give me a simple situation. Let's try it out, and let's go ahead and kick this pig, whether Hades wants to or not.
Sure. Simple situation. Let's say I want to, I don't know, like kick down a door and there's a perp behind there that I want to interrogate.
Okay. So you come up to this steel door. It's been on. It's rusted a little bit. It's not too sturdy. We're gonna get this we're gonna get this perp, right? So you come up. I dictate that it's going to be a strength check with a benchmark of 7, since it's pretty rusted. It hasn't been well taken care of.
Okay. And I don't really have any skills to apply to that, so I'll be just rolling raw strength there. Looks like I actually
Your
failed that.
foot hits the door and it just kind of reverberates back, right? You're just not strong enough. So let's make this now, instead of a simple check, let's go ahead and just bump it up to an extended check. You've rattled the door a little bit, but I feel like you need to get at least 2 successes in order to break down that door. So let's go ahead and roll your strength again.
Okay.
So that's 1 success. So you kick in the door, you hit it hard, and it starts to, like the rust starts to flake off of it, and it kind of starts to break from the hinges, or not the hinges, from the door jamb. Go ahead and roll again.
All right.
Boom! You kick down the door, and the perp is hiding behind the door as dust kicks up off of it. There's rust flecks hitting the ground, and he kind of looks up at you. So what would you want to do at this point in time, Judge?
At this point, I kick through the door, so I come through, and I got my gun drawn at him, and where's the drugs?
I don't know where the drugs are, man. I don't know what you're talking about. So now you're trying to get some information out of him. So as a GM, he's scared. You just kick down a door in front of him. I'm going to say that you can use, I'll give you a choice. I do like to make this available to different types of players. So you're going to do an intuition check or a charisma check with a benchmark of 10.
Okay. So for that, I would choose either or, because my intuition and charisma pulls are the same, but I'll go with intuition. It feels fitting for Null. And a skill on that would be interrogation. I have 1 point in that.
That sounds fair. Roll it.
Or intimidate. I have the same amount of skill in both of those.
Either one would work.
So let's go with 3d6.
So as a benchmark of 10, he immediately says, he's like, Jimmy the Clam has him, man. He took him from me. He ran off. He's gone. He's out. He's out the door. I'm sorry, Judge. So you passed your check. You got your information. If you would have failed, he would have, held back. So this is how the dice kind of play into the role play. We want to always try to push for the role playing, because that's what this whole thing is about, right? If you wanted to just chuck dice and shoot things, you could play. Oh, what's that one you're streaming on your own channel right now? The Miami one?
Oh, Hotline Miami.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's plenty of other games out there if you really want to just, do that kind of stuff. But we like to get into the role play a little bit.
Yeah.
So, anything you want to add to that? Or should we move on to luck?
Nope, I think I'm ready to move on to luck.
Okay,
Pretty much covered it.
Good. So luck is an additional factor into this game. It's an attribute. You, at the beginning of your shift or your day, you fill up your luck pool with the number of luck dice that's determined by your attribute. So if you have a luck of 6, you would have 3d6 in your luck pool for that start. Luck can be expended several different ways. So getting the luck pool into there. There it is. So luck can be used in a variety of ways. It can be used to minimize damage to you by an expenditure one for one. It can aid you in rolls, so you can add another die or 2. There's no real governing on the number of luck dice that you can use. It's a 1-for-1. It says just add dice to any attribute check on a 1-for-1 basis. So given that it says 1-for-1 basis, it also says dice, not die. as a GM, I state that means you could add multiple luck die to your roll. Two important parts about this. Number one is that these do not count for your base pool. So if your base pool is locked at 5 dice, you can still add these luck dice to that and get more dice. The other thing is that they're exploding. Not literally, because I know Hades is going to ask about that. But if you roll a 6, you get to roll it again and again and again and again and again and again. So if you keep rolling 6s, it just keeps bumping up, and the number goes up and up and up and up. So the pool does deplete, but it can be bumped up in a couple different ways. There are some exploits that are out there that allow you to share luck dice with other people in your group, but normally these are reserved for yourself. So let's try this again, Sam. So
Okay.
come up with another scenario, and I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult this time, and we'll try using the luck die.
All right. So a really common scenario for judges is trying to tell if someone's lying to you, and that's why we have the birdie to try and help us detect lies. And because it's such an important, pivotal moment in the narrative, I might want to spend luck dice to make sure that I succeed on it, because there's no coming back from that roll.
So you come up, you track down the clam, the guy that the perp was just talking about, and he comes quietly, you cuff him, and he's sitting in front of you, and he's just mad dogging you.
All right.
So he tells you, I ditched the drugs in the Black Atlantic whenever I was getting away from you.
All right. So at that point, I would ask if I could use my birdie to see if it can tell if he's lying.
Absolutely. You pull out your birdie, and because the birdie is actually a special piece of equipment that tells you that it's I believe it adds a 1d6 to your roll, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I would say that you're going to do an intuition check at we'll say, let's bump it up a little bit because he's kind of stone-faced. We're going to call it difficult. So that's going to be 16.
Okay. All
So
right, so I
remember
will go ahead and spend a luck die on that.
Okay.
And for my skill, I have a point in detect lie, so I'll be using that skill along with my birdie d6.
Okay.
All right. There we go.
Wow. Can you hover over that for me? The 23. Did you roll triple sixes? When it turns green, that means you rolled some sixes.
I rolled 1 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have that up on my screen right now. I appreciate that. So you immediately tell that he is lying. He is just he's probably got the drugs keistered.
All right. So at this point, I would probably get a little more aggressive. Then you said that his name's the clam.
Yeah.
Tell me where they are, Clam. I know you're lying.
He kind of looks over at the trash can, and then he looks back, and then he looks back over at the trash can, and he kind of nods his head that way. So I guess he didn't have him keistered. I don't want to get Hades too excited. So absolutely. So you spend a luck die. That luck die is gone. You can come up and get it another way, but it definitely adds to it. And the reason why we want to use that skill in the Roll20 system is because there's a special little hooyah that you can click on. Another way to roll it, just base in Roll20, is an exclamation mark and then the D6, and then it'll do it as exploding. So, the final note that I'd like to talk about with this system is the countdown dice. This is another thing that I really like because it adds a timer to the game that isn't stuck or isn't lost by players needing to talk about things, by somebody just thinking too long or having to go through the system and click different things or look something up. So with the countdown dice pool, it's a cool way to add tension to the system. So a countdown clock is used for death, it's used for disease, it's used for drowning, suffocating, ticking clocks, or a GM can dictate how they want to use it. So essentially what happens is the GM sets a dice pool, and that dice pool is rolled at different intervals. The GM also determines what the speed of the clock is. So if it's slow, any 6 that comes up on that roll is now gone on the next one. On a medium, it ends up being, let me pull this up. This is timer dice. Let's go ahead and pull that up for the viewers. Whenever it's medium speed, you would have any dice that comes up as a 5 or a 6 would be removed from the pool for the next one. On fast, it's 4 to 6. So, for example, let's say you have a perp trying to get away, and I don't know how, if I want to do a chase or not. I could set a countdown clock. If I wanted to do a bomb, let's say it's a really crappy bomb that's just, it's got a fuse attached to it, we could do the slow timer. If it has a very nice sophisticated timer and I really want to press it, then you could do medium 5 to 6. One of the things I like about this is that this gives the GMs a way to increase the tension, because what happens whenever a situation comes up? Players start talking, right? This is another thing. You could have somebody trying to get away, right? So you have the players, it's like the door opens and here are these different guys and you can see a guy run to the back. What are you going to do? And then the players are like, well, let's see here. Severian, what's Judge Null have in this skill? Do you have your pistol out? What about you? What do you got, right? So what I can do is I can set a timer. And if you guys start running your mouth for too long, I can say, all right, roll the timer. And then it starts to give this idea that, hey, we're running out of time. We need to be careful. So let's give this a little bit of a try. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to set the scene. We're going to back up a little bit different. You already arrested the clam. You got these guys. They're already attached to the police. You called into Central. Okay. We're going to come up with a little bit of a different scenario. We're going to have somebody trying to get away from you. Okay. This time, you are going to be stuck. Let's just keep it to the door scenario. You're stuck behind a door. Okay. The perp has bolted out of the room, has shut the door behind you, and you are now trying to get to them. So I'm going to say that there's going to be a timer for this perp to get away. So we're going to say that it's, again, the GM can adjust the dice pool to start with. We're going to say it's a slow timer. So only 6s will end up removing from the dice pool. And we're going to say that you have a pretty good... he doesn't have that good of a head start. So I'm going to say a 6d6 pool to start with. So I'm going to roll that to begin with. And I need to get my dice pool back up. Let me get rid of this timer dice, and we transition over. So this is the first roll. So the timer has now started. So on any 6, we remove that from the pool. So the next time that I roll, it's going to be at 5d6. So he's bolting down the hall. He's trying to get away from you. What's Judge Null doing?
He's running down the hall. Is there a door in this scenario still?
He has locked you behind a door in his
Locked
hab.
me behind a door.
Yep, you are stuck behind a door.
Okay, well, the most obvious thing comes to mind is trying to kick down the door.
Okay, you try and kick down the door. It's a big, heavy metal door. This isn't like the rusted crap that you just dealt with. So this is a strength check at a difficult difficulty score. So 16.
All right. So with the 16, I have absolutely no chance of even succeeding with just a strength check. So I'm going to see if I can maybe use perception to notice some sort of maybe a weak point in the door.
So you use your perception to determine that, hey, you know what? Maybe this door, kicking it down in the lower right-hand corner might be a little bit easier. So go ahead and roll that with the skill.
All right. So that would be 3d6.
So you kick the door and it doesn't even budge. So your guy is taking off down the hall. He's made the right corner. And he's starting to get away. So now I rolled the timer pool again. So now we are down to 46. So time's starting to get a little bit slim. What else does Judge Null want to do?
I think there's probably not a good chance I'm going to get through this door, so I want to try and look at my surroundings and see if I can find any other route to get to where he's heading.
So I'm going to say to determine if you might have an alternate route, let's do an intuition check, but we're going to make it still pretty challenging. So we're going to say a difficulty score of 12.
Okay. And about the only skill I think I could apply to that would be perception again.
I agree.
All right, so that would give me 4d6 this time. And I rolled a 666.
So something tells you to go ahead and try the doorknob. But he ends up trying, continue down the way. So I would be rolling 4d6 this time. He's putting on a burst of speed, hearing that kick on the door. So we're going to bump this up now. Instead of slow, it's going to be medium. So now on any 5 or 6, yeah. And so you rolled a critical, by the way, and that's why we can say that the door's unlocked, right? You just shut it in your face.
Yeah.
But he's trying to get away faster now. So we're going to go medium speed.
All right. So now that I realize the door is unlocked, I open it. Oh.
He got away! So, just poor luck, right? But had it just been a slow, you would have had another chance. You could open up the door and continue on. So, these countdown dice are just another way in order to try and add a little bit of tension. You can, as a GM, I would say, because of what just happened, Severian rolled a critical. I didn't even notice that before I said that we're going to move to a medium speed. Had I noticed that before, I would have said, hey, let's just keep it at a slow speed. So he would have had a chance to catch him. You could use this as, the time's up, and now the players have to make another decision to try something else. You can use it in order to try and push your players a little bit forward and keep things from stalling out. So that's pretty much all I have for roles, because everything else deals with combat, which we're going to do in another video. There's a lot of info in this chapter, but I think that's enough in order to get players moving to begin with. So you want to definitely take a read through the different types of roles to see how you can use them, so on and so forth. Severian, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I don't think I have anything else. I'm just looking forward to getting into the next section with combat.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
a lot of interesting stuff in there with how tactical this game can be.
Absolutely. So I'm hoping to bust out that video next week, and we'll be able to work together, and maybe we'll get one of the other judges in on this to add a little bit of spice to things. So from Tabletop Anthologies, I'm Judge Wolf.
And I'm Severian.
And we'll see you out on the street, citizens.